then also we are going to be Facebook live streaming this meeting, and I will go ahead and get that started. Just take me a minute. Okay, we have this streaming, should be started now. And I'd like to introduce Madison Bolls, who will be exhibiting today. Madison?
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Deb. Welcome, everyone, to this webinar on submitting to exhibition calls. I really appreciate you joining us today. Let's see. Just a little bit about me on why I'm hosting this webinar. I'm an artist in Washington, D.C. I'm also the exhibition chair for the D.C. chapter of the Women's Caucus for Art. I've been involved in the chapter for about 5 years now, and I've been involved in their exhibitions for as long as 5 years, but I've been officially the chair of exhibitions for 2 years. I've also been a part of exhibitions throughout the DC area, both as an artist and as an administrator. And so I wanted to share information that I see in being an exhibitions administrator throughout my time doing this, just so we all can put our best face forward and be the best businesswomen that we can when it comes to showing our art. We will be using Entry Thingy as sort of our backbone today and talking about submitting specifically in Entry Thingy, but I will be providing additional general tips along the way, but I want to make it clear that I am not associated with Entry Thingy at all. It's really just my experience in using it through the Women's Caucus DC chapter. That is our primary exhibition management system that we use. And Entry Thingy does have really great FAQs and videos that you can watch, and I encourage you to utilize those. But this is just my experience in managing shows through them and the best advice I can give for you. So our agenda for today, I'm going to be doing a step-by-step sort of arc of submitting to a call in Entry Thingy. And throughout that, we will have some general tips on not just submitting things in Entry Thingy, but also submitting to any sort of exhibition call. And I think we'll hear some new things that are coming up, especially since we're in this brand new world right now of not doing things in person and only submitting things through maybe online exhibitions. And I'll be referring often to our the DC chapter's current exhibition call, which is called See My Color. This is going to be an online exhibition that we're doing that was influenced by the recent protests that are happening around police brutality and racial injustice. This call is actually open to all Women's Caucus members nationwide. You don't have to be a part of the DC chapter to be a part of it. So we encourage you to apply. The call closes August 30th. So I'll be sort of using that as our example today. And once I go through the steps, we'll do some takeaway do's and don'ts, things to keep in mind, and then we'll have time for questions. And as Deb noted, please stay muted throughout, and you can ask questions in the chat box. I will try to get to the questions as they come in, but if I miss something, we'll be sure to sort of tie everything up and answer everything at the end. All right, so let's get started. And what I first want to talk about is the way you can first locate the call and entry thingy. And there's actually a few ways you can do this. And the first way is just through entrythingy.com. And if you go to their website, you see that green box on the top right corner and you click call for entries, and you can search by the exhibition month, region, state, or show type. My personal feeling is the best is either the month or the state. The show type is kind of vague and doesn't really whittle down your options very much. And that's probably best for using if you're just browsing exhibitions. But if you're trying to find a specific one, I would say the month of the state are the best way to go. Now, this already presents a moment of confusion if you're a part of the DC area, because the DMV, as we call it, is very interconnected. We have folks in DC, Maryland, Virginia, Delaware, West Virginia. And so you want to be conscious of where the show is going to be. For the purposes of the See My Color show, we have it as District of Columbia. So if you search that, as you can see in the screenshot here, the show call comes right up and you can click on it. Now, another way that you can get to a call for entry is through an organization's specific, what I would call a portal, and it's or a dashboard. And the link that I have listed here at the top is the Women's Caucus DC chapter's dashboard, so to speak. And if you go directly to that, it'll list all of our calls that we have going at any given time. Right now, we just have the one, See My Color. And this one, we always link to from our website as well, and I'll show you that in a moment. But this is where you'll find the official entry information. And so when you review a call for entry, it's really important that you review all of the information really carefully. You want to read it a few times, and the things to look out for are the eligibility and the theme. You want to make sure that you're eligible for a show, especially when it comes to Women's Caucus shows. Sometimes you're only eligible if you're a member of a specific chapter. And in the case of the DC chapter, you're totally welcome to join our chapter, even if you don't live in the DC area. But it's just something to be mindful of like, are you actually available? You want to be mindful of the theme and how they're explaining the theme and how your work could relate to that theme. You'll also want to be mindful of the deadline of the entry and also any other key dates that they list in the call. I keep a calendar of all of the entries that I apply for and all of the key dates, whether it's the deadline, the notification date that they list, artwork drop-off, artwork pickup, panels, receptions, etc. All of those will likely be already determined and listed in the art call. And so you want to make sure you have those on your radar. There's going to be an application fee more often than not, so you want to be mindful of that. And you also want to look at who is jurying or curating the show. And I encourage you to be a total creep and Google their name and find out a little bit more about them. And usually there will be a bio in the call, but this will only help your chances of getting work accepted to a call. Figure out what they do, what their interests are, why are they jurying this call, what's their association with the organization. And maybe you can find a connection between your work and them and really put your best foot forward in submitting the work that will give you the best chances of getting into the call. And finally, well, not finally, the piece submission limits is going to be mentioned in the call. Some calls have 3 or 5 piece limits that you can submit. Others, if it's like a call for exhibitions or a call for solo shows, you may have to submit up to 20 images. So you want to make sure you're following those directions there. And finally, and this seems really simple, but it's very important, is the naming conventions of how you submit your images and how you label your images when you upload them to a call. A lot of calls are going to list how they need the images to be labeled. And this is really important for managing the submissions that they get. A lot of times the managers will be downloading all of the images that are either accepted or all the images that were submitted. And if they're not labeled correctly, there's no way to tell which image is what, which is going to cause a lot of extra work and anxiety on the back end. So it really saves people a lot of time if you label your images the way they need to. The example I give here, where it's the last name _ title of the piece, is how I personally label my images anyway, and I see that a lot, and that's how we do it as well. So that may be for your internal business processes, that may be a good place to start, and how you label your images. Mocha has a question about what calendar app do you recommend to keep track of entries? I honestly use Google Calendars because I know I can integrate it with my phone. I also am really old school and keep a book and like a paper calendar where I write things in. I'm a librarian by training, and writing things down and organizing them that way is very good for my brain. So it's really just you find what works best for you and how you work from day to day and what you can refer to back to often. Great question. All right. So in the final more DC chapter way you can access any sort of call information is on the Women's Caucus for Art website. I find that sometimes entry thingy can be confusing in locating specific information, like or keeping all the information on the call in one place. And so we want you to utilize our website to not only find call information, but also refer back to it whenever you need. I mentioned you need to read over it multiple times so you fully understand the directions and the things you need to keep in mind for submitting. And this is just a really easy place to go back to. So we encourage you to visit our website, and we hope that other organizations who use Entry Thingy to submit their calls will likely do the same. Okay, so you've located the call, and now it's time to log in. You have to have an account to apply for any call in Entry Thingy. It's super simple. It's free. When you see the call on the website here, there are 2 links at the top. Either sign up to submit or click here to log in. If you've never submitted anything through Entry Thingy before, you can go ahead and sign up. Super easy. And once you have created your account, you'll see this website where it says, oh, here's the call, apply now. Well, don't apply now just yet. I want you to take a look at the My Profile link at the top, which is going to have your basic information on it and is very important for you to review. So the entrant profile in Entry Thingy has 3 areas. It has your contact information, your general artist statement, and then your resume. And these are all fields that you can easily copy and paste information into. As artists, I'm sure everyone here keeps an up-to-date artist statement and resume regularly in their files. And so this makes it easy to just go in anytime you plan on submitting a call and copying and pasting that information into the fields. When you are copying and pasting things into these fields, just be mindful of formatting. Sometimes when you copy something from Word and then paste it into an online field like this, some of the formatting is still in there and causes weird characters or fonts. So either strip out the formatting before you paste it into the field, or just be sure to review it a few times to make sure all of those weird errors and whatnot are cleaned out. It's really important to keep this information updated because when you submit to a call, the entry thingy is never going to prompt you to submit this. When it comes to calls that are set up in Entry Thingy, managers may choose to see someone's statement or require a resume when it comes to submission. And the call is not going to notify you that you need to submit this. It's really just going to pull it from your profile. So if you move, if your phone number or email changes, your website changes, make sure you update this information before you submit to any call. It'll look really unprofessional if they try to contact you and you have the wrong email address or your resume hasn't been updated in 5 years. People will notice. This is also a place, as you can see from this link here, is where you can change your password if you need to. But before we go back to call, I also want to point out this Entry Thingy for Artists section here. So if you click that link, it'll take you to this artwork management site. In the pages that I was showing in the past with the call, those are sort of like the call portal, the Women's Caucus or organization portal of the call. This is sort of the artist-centric portal where none of your pieces are associated with any specific call. And here, you can upload images in advance of submitting to any call. It's super easy. You could just select this add artwork button and it'll allow you to upload an image and then complete the accompanying information about the image. You can also, and this is not shown in the screen capture that I have here, but you can also view your past Entry Thingy submissions through this site. Now, you can see that it indicates an option to create a subscription to create a gallery or a website, which is an extra $4.90 a month to your account if you're interested in that. I actually don't know too much about creating your own website or gallery through Entry Thingy, but from a professional point of view, from a personal point of view as an artist, I think it's better to have your own website that's exterior to Entry Thingy and has your own gallery pages on that. And I think that's the best way to go because you're going to have more opportunity for personal branding on your own external site, more control over how many images you can add, and how the look and feel of your page is going to look. And also, you're not going to be submitting work exclusively through Entry Thingy all the time. You're going to be using other call submission platforms, emails. So this is not where you're going to be 100% of the time. So my personal opinion is that it's probably not worth your while, but feel free to look into it if you think it's something you want to do. And I should mention that to get to this artwork management site, I do have the link right here on the page. Someone asked, Hedith asks, what makes a good statement? I could do a whole nother webinar on creating an artist statement. So we're not going to be able to cover that here. But there are some pretty good resources out there for that you can probably just Google, or you can connect with me after the webinar. All right, so we've updated our profile, and so we're back at the call. And so now it is actually time to apply. This is where I think Entry Thingy can get a little confusing because the call itself is actually broken into two parts on their website. You have this general call information, which is what you see here, which explains who's doing the call, what's the theme, yada, yada, yada. And then after you hit the Apply Now button, it takes you to the entry instructions, which are really more, I suppose, the nuts and bolts of what you need to submit. In my brain, general information and entry instructions are not necessarily mutually exclusive. And you don't want to toggle in between those two sites when you're trying to figure out what you actually need to know about submitting to the call. So this is where it comes in, where it's best to refer to our website or to the gallery or organization's website for the complete call information if they have it on there. Just so you don't get too confused and nothing is left out unintentionally. But you do need to read these instructions and indicate that you have read and understand the instructions before continuing to the next step. Now, once you do continue to the next step, there is this link here on all of your pages titled Entry Instructions that you can click on, and it'll take you back to those instructions if you ever need to refer to them again. But when it comes to Women's Caucus DC chapter stuff, it's just best to look at our website so it's not as confusing. But after you click to confirm that, there is this general entry information where you agree to the terms of entry, and the terms of entry are unique to each call. They're things that the call manager will complete, and then there's the permission to use your pieces for publicity. And I always encourage folks to check that box, because more publicity means more visibility for you and an increased chance of a sale. So I hope you are into that. There is an option in Entry Thingy for exhibition managers to require a overall entry description, which is sort of like a place where you can describe your whole submission as a whole. And if that's required, that's where that box will be here. We don't typically use that because people are often submitting multiple pieces at a time that aren't presented as a group per se. But if the call is for a solo exhibition or an exhibition as a whole for a group of images to be selected, that's where this may be required. But for this purposes, it's not. So once you click the boxes you need to here, you can save and go to the next step. And this is where the magic happens, where you actually add the pieces that you are going to submit to the call. Now, before we add a piece, I want to point out the reuse previous link that's here next to the add piece button. When you click that, that is going to take you to a cache of entries that you have previously submitted from other exhibition calls in Entry Thingy. Super handy to use if you're going to be reusing images, but be mindful that those pieces and those images will be deleted when the associated calls are deleted by the organizations that host them. I can tell you that Entry Thingy charges a fee to the organization when a call is left on the website for more than a year. So most often when organizations are finished using a call for entry, they're not going to keep it on their page for very long. So that's not always useful. But that's when that artwork management section that I showed you earlier is going to come in handy. And that's the select from my artwork link down here. That's where you can click there and go into your previously uploaded pieces and utilize those. Very handy. But for this instance, we're going to be adding a piece that we've never uploaded before through this add piece button. Add piece. These are the fields here that you're going to be required to submit or fill out when you upload your image. A lot of these fields are tailored specifically to the call manager. So a call manager may be like, oh, I don't really need to know the year it was created, so that may not be visible when you submit. But it's good to have all of these in your artwork inventory list, just so you're when you need them. And again, if you're copying and pasting from another document, which you probably are, be mindful of pasting in things with formatting. Take a look at the description. And the description here is actually not a very good description that I have in the screenshot. But a description is an opportunity for you to explain briefly what the piece you're submitting means to you and how it relates to the call. And I think that's a great opportunity to have the juror make an additional connection to your work. So a good, really brief description, the saying, keep it simple, stupid, be clear, simple language on how it connects to the call. And I think that's a great opportunity to further your submission. And once you fill in all of the fields, there is a file upload, and you can see here in the screenshot that I attempted to upload a file, and it gave me this little oops error message because my file size wasn't big enough. If the file size is too small or too big, it'll let you know what size it needs to be. And you can adjust your file size accordingly and do that and re-upload successfully. The file size is managed by the by the exhibition manager. But there's no way in Entry Thingy where it indicates what the file size requirement is unless they explicitly put that information in the call. A standard file size is between 1500 and 2500 pixels wide. And that's also something that a lot more people know about than I do. But if you do get the error message, you can see what the minimum size required is. And it's usually, here we have 275 kilobytes. It's usually around that for most calls. And that's really for, the file size requirement is for really best use of publicity and catalogs. So they get a good, clear image. Let's see, I think we have some questions. Are jurors only able to see the artwork submitted to a call, not able to see artwork in your previously uploaded artwork? That's correct. They will only see images that you officially submit and complete submission for in the call. And it looks like, yeah, and they could visit your website. I don't think a lot of jurors are going to visit your website unless they're doing a selection for like a solo exhibition, or they're looking to get a little more information. But yes, so you fill out the piece information, you upload your file successfully, and it'll show up back in this format here. You can see the image of the piece that I uploaded and the entry information. And then you see this button at the bottom called add view/detail. This is great. Not all entries will allow this. It is a feature for exhibition managers, but they'll allow this if you want to submit extra photos of the work. So if it's a sculpture and you want to show multiple sides of the sculpture, it'll allow you to do that here. Or if it's a big mixed media piece and you want to show a detail of that, you're allowed to do that here. It's usually you can add up to 3 images. So that will complete the entry if you want to for this piece. If you want to add additional pieces to the entry, you do the whole thing again with adding a piece button or selecting from your artwork until you've had your whole entry completed. And once you hit the limit, so if it's a 3-piece limit for an entry, this add piece box will go away. So you won't be submitting more pieces than you're allowed to. But before we complete this entry or submit, I want to take you to the See Jury View link, which is right below your name in the upper right-hand corner. When you click that, you'll be able to essentially see what the jury sees. And this is super helpful to be like, just review your work and be like, would I select this piece? Am I providing enough information? And I should mention that the information that you provide here is just prepare for it to be on a wall label. Think of like, what would you allow on a wall label? What should be on a wall label? That's what should go into these boxes. So you can visualize, oh, would I agree that this is an accurate description of my work? And it also will give a great opportunity to spell check, make sure there's no misspellings or weird typos and that sort of thing. So you can see it as they see it. And then once you're done, you can go back to entry and edit it. Now I've mentioned some of these tips before, but I do want to reinforce these tips for adding images. Follow the designated naming conventions of the call and make sure that your files are being named correctly. I cannot stress that enough, how much extra work it creates when you don't name your files the right way. When you're entering the piece information into the fields, be mindful of copy and paste and formatting, and then the image size. most calls should indicate the image size, but the 300 KB or the 15 to 25 pixels wide are general good benchmarks. But I'm also not an expert on that. But yes, someone had a question. Do you recommend adding additional images at the same pace? I think I do, especially if your piece is really detailed. I think it can only help you. I don't think it'll hinder you. And Holly's right. Only some calls allow a video. But if you do, or if you are allowed to upload a video, go for it. Any information you can provide, that makes your work clearer and better to understand, because you have to keep in mind that these folks are looking at literally hundreds of images at a time to select maybe 30 to 40 images for a show, maybe even less. So they're going to be looking at a lot of work. So those are some general tips for adding images. And I also want to take a moment to talk about conflicts of interest. And I think this has become more relevant now that we can do online shows. We're not doing a lot of shows these days, thanks to the pandemic, that are in person. So we're just submitting images. We don't have to bring in work anywhere. So it's just going online. You don't want to submit the same piece to multiple shows at one time. And this is because if, let's say you submit, and this matters whether it's an in-person show or not. Let's say you submit the same piece to two different shows, you get into the first show, and then the second show also accepts the piece, and you have to tell that organization that your piece can't be in the show. That's creating a lot of extra work for the organization and really doesn't look professional. So when you have your calendar, you want to put in the show dates of these potential pieces that you submitted. I also use in my artwork inventory Excel sheet, I also have a column that sort of indicates who has dibs on what piece and for how long, because you're going to have the show dates, and if you have, let's say with this online exhibition environment that we're in, let's say you have a piece hanging up in a gallery in person and you also have it in an online show. Well, if it sells in one of those places, the other gallery or the other organization that's showing the work is going to want a piece of commission on that piece, which is going to lower your profit levels when you make a sale. So you want to be mindful of those show dates and make sure you're not double dipping, so to speak, and submitting pieces. You're also going to be mindful of contract terms. If you have an exhibition, a lot of times they will put conditions in the contract that last longer than the actual show dates itself. So if you have a piece in a show that ends on the 15th and someone comes by or approaches you on the 20th and wants to purchase that piece, a lot of galleries and organizations reserve the right to collect a commission of that sale for 30 days after the show. So again, if you have a piece in a show that ends on the 15th, another show starts on the 17th, and the piece is purchased on the 20th, you're responsible for 2 commissions, and that's going to lower your profit. So be very careful of those contract terms. And also exclusivity clauses. If you manage to get gallery representation, which is fantastic, and there's an exclusivity clause in that gallery representation contract, any piece that you have in another show and it sells, again, they're going to request the commission off that sale. So these conflicts hurt your business, and while it's a lot more work on our part to keep all of this organized, it's a good business practice. And you know, like, the world is not perfect. things change. You may submit a piece for a show and a friend or a private collector approaches you before you even hear about the show and wants to buy it from you. That's great. But if something does change, it's best to contact that organization and withdraw that piece for consideration. If you do that up front, that could potentially save some people a lot of work, and it's very professional. Yes, people mention here a spreadsheet to get started. I can share that with you all. I actually had a slide in here that showed how I do it, but I thought that was TMI. But I can definitely share how I organize my own artwork. And we should be keeping track of our artwork inventory anyway. That shows even for sales, like who has the pieces that you created, so you can cultivate positive relationships with your patrons. But anyway, suffice to say, it's important to keep a calendar of all of these dates. Do I have any more guidance on how long the description of the piece should be? If you can keep it, a lot of times the call will have a character limit or a word count limit of how long. I would keep it to like 1 to 2 sentences. And you may have to tweak. I would always keep these in your back pocket for each piece, but you always want to connect it back to the theme of the call. So it really strengthens that connection to why it's being submitted in the first place. All right. Now, this is a lot of information. It's a lot of things to review. I'm telling you to double, triple check all your information. That's exhausting. So you can leave your unfinished entry and come back and finish it. So this is what it looks like when you log back in and you have the call info and your entry and it says complete entry. So you can go ahead and click that button and it'll allow you to complete it. So don't get too overwhelmed just yet. So once everything is submitted, you've triple checked your entry, you keep track of the dates of the call, you have them in your calendar. It's now time to pay. The entry thingy platform uses PayPal. So it's great to have a PayPal login account set up anyway, which it's a super easy to use software. And just a quick note about an exhibition fee. I used to think it was a total bummer to submit a fee to a show that I don't even know I'm going to be a part of. But those entry fees are really important for the work that these curators and jurors do, especially at the Women's Caucus. We are a volunteer organization, but we want to get the best jurors and curators we possibly can to get involved with our artists and our exhibitions. So we do offer them a stipend, and a lot of times that stipend is coming from the fees of the call entries. For our See My Color show that we're doing, that's going to be a little bit different because all of the entry fees are going to fund a scholarship for a woman identifying person of color to study art. So again, generally, it also shows that you're committed to your practice and committed to your business as an artist. It shows that you're serious, but those entry fees do go to a place where people are being fairly compensated for the work they're doing on these shows. And again, if something changes during the submission process, let's say you've submitted it and there's 2 weeks go by and something changes on your pieces, you can be proactive and contact the organization to withdraw submission. All right, so what happens next after you submit? So if you're accepted, that's fantastic. Again, keep a calendar of those dates. You'll probably get reminded of those dates when you're accepted. And be prompt and on time with work pickup and drop off. If, let's say, drop off is during your trip to Europe, which God knows all of us really want to go on a trip to Europe right now. But it's important to line up If you can't do it, to line up a friend or a fellow artist or maybe another artist participating in the show to do that work for you. It's really inconvenient to contact a gallery and tell them, oh, can I do it later? Can I do it earlier? A lot of times organizations and galleries don't have extra storage space. So if they're agreeing to do it, it's essentially a personal favor. So it's good to sort of be as professional as you can and keep that out of the organization's responsibilities. And also, if they require any forms, whether it's a W-9, a contract agreement that needs to be signed, make sure you submit those as prompt as you can. If you're rejected, ladies and gents who are on this call, we have all been rejected to calls, and it feels like a dagger to the heart. Our art is so personal to us, and it's really hard to take call rejections as not personal. But generally they aren't, and people have made some really tough decisions around rejecting some work to calls, and a lot of times it is like a space issue or a theme issue. So take that with a grain of salt and don't reply to the gallery or juror with comments about why you didn't get accepted. That reflects poorly on you. And let's say that you have your calendar of dates and the notification date has come and gone. You haven't heard anything. It happens. Check your spam folder first. I can tell you that with Entry Thingy, the acceptance and rejection notices go out through the software. So I don't actually submit any emails. And a lot of times that software email will go into your spam. So check those. And if you still can't find it, you can email the gallery or organization and just be like, hey, I haven't heard, just checking in. And that's totally fine. A lot of times, especially this day and age, with record submissions being what they are sometimes, it'll take longer to go through. And so they may be running behind, and they'll tell you that. But that's totally fine to contact them if you have a question. All right, so we've gone through everything. Here are my general takeaways for do's and don'ts. If you're working through Entry Thingy, feel free to refer to their FAQs. They have an extensive amount of them. Make sure you keep your Entry Thingy profile updated at all times, the same way that you keep your resume and artist statement updated. Make sure you read all the call info and follow all the directions in the call. Feel free to research the organization and the juror and how best you can connect to what they're trying to do in this exhibition. Keep that calendar of dates and keep everything organized and what you think is coming up. And finally, cultivate positive and professional relationships with the gallery and other artists that you meet in these shows. I can tell you that people who cultivate these relationships will be thought of later in other contexts for other shows. So it's always good to work with people on a positive note. And in terms of don'ts, don't submit the same paintings or works to conflicting call information. So don't submit two paintings to two different calls at the same time. That'll get messy real quick. Don't mislabel your images. Make sure you use the naming conventions that the call calls for. And lastly, don't expect the gallery organization to do you any favors. They're doing a lot, and they want to put your best face forward and your best work up on these galleries and these websites even. So it's good to stay professional and make sure you're doing your part of the work. All right. Do we have any questions? Are there any questions that I missed?
No, I think you have all the questions that were in the chat.
Cool.
If you would like to ask a question, we can open your mic at this time.
Yes. And I'll show my video again so you guys can see me.
So if you do have a question, just unmute your mic and you can ask Madison. While we're waiting for that, I will make this presentation as well as the video that we're recording available on our website. And as Madison said, she has a spreadsheet, and I also have a spreadsheet, and we will make those available for download. So you'll have those to get started.
Yeah. And I think a lot of some of the things that I talked about today were related to sort of the business of art, which I know that Kim Foley has done workshops in on the with us on the past of just sort of like keeping a portfolio of your work, keeping an inventory, keeping up to date, an artist statement and whatnot. And so that information is out there, and I'm happy to share what I have with it. Thanks, Deborah. I'm glad you can make it.
I have a question about, I had applied to a show through Submittable, and I'd never used that before. So is that another known platform?
Yes, Submittable is actually really fantastic. I definitely, the big ones out there are Submittable. There's Cafe, which is like short for call for entry. Those are both really great. And it is when organizations use those, it's like a subscription service that they have. So they're typically web-based software platforms that they can use to have folks submit. And it's like a database content management system that they can easily review pieces. We've always used Entry Thingy. There was a time a couple years ago where I tried to switch to another service, and so I did a lot of I did demos on a few of them, Cafe and Submittable being two, and those are really expensive softwares. And so Entry Thingy is really cheap.
Well, I was just curious about, what you answered my question.
Yeah, sure. And Renee says, do you have any more advice for applying to virtual exhibitions? It is now the new norm. Again, like that conflict of interest is really important. Image quality is really important, especially since they're not going to be seeing the piece in person. If you're allowed to submit multiple images, you can submit sort of your typical image where it's like just the painting or just the piece. And then maybe if it is a painting or a piece that hangs on a wall, then you could sort of do a zoom out and be like, this is what it looks like, in relation to a vase or something like that. So it looks more attractive.
Also, I recommend to make sure you're taking your pictures outside of your work.
Oh.
So take your painting outside, prop it up on a chair. If you don't have a easel, an easel is the perfect thing. But if you don't have one, you can always just take a chair and prop it up on a chair and make sure you're not in direct sunlight. You're not in the shade. You're kind of sort of shade, but you don't want direct sunlight because then it'll harshen out the colors and it'll make it look really and cause some shadows on the textures.
Yeah.
But definitely outside in well lit
for good lighting. I am terrible at taking pictures of my work. And Hedith, you asked if cell phone pictures are allowed. Cell phone, like if you have an iPhone, a lot of times the quality of those cameras are like better than normal cameras, depending on what version of the phone you have. So yes, you can definitely take photos with your phone. There are some, honestly, I used to have an app. What is it? VSCO is a really good, VSCO is a good app that you can use to sort of clean up images. It is a paid app, so I don't remember how much it costs, but you do have to pay for it. But the software on an iPhone these days is really great for editing and lightening up and clearing up photos. My biggest issue is taking a photo of a piece of artwork and it ends up being crooked and you want it to be straight. And so they do have the lines there that'll help you line up everything.
Mm-hmm. There's a really good article, the Art League the Torpedo Factory, the Art League, if you're a member, you can access their blog and you have to search for it. It's been out there for a couple years, but it's a really good article about how to shoot your artwork. And they talk about the lighting and they talk about lining it up. A big issue on shooting flat art is that the camera has to be parallel to the artwork so that you actually have a rectangle that fits inside your viewfinder. And then, of course, no glare is acceptable, and so on. So it gets technical without being too technical. It's like technical that's accessible to people who are not professional photographers.
Yeah.
It's a very good article. I
Yeah.
highly recommend it. In fact, I will try to find the link and I will share it after this.
Great.
Holly, if you can
Thank
put
you. That
that
would be great.
in the resources on our website, then we can share it with everyone.
Okay.
Thank you.
Look for it.
Hi. And it's okay to like do scans, right? Too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as they're good quality and they think
yeah,
you.
because I do a lot of scanning of my work, but most of my work probably is already digitalized.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. Okay.
And a lot of people do get professional photography done of their work.
Yeah.
And that's great. I think that's great if your business allows for that.
Yeah.
And scanning is great too.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
And the great thing about those two options is that once you get a really good quality picture, you could create prints from that, even giclée prints.
Yes.
I use finerworks.com.
Yep.
And they actually have a tutorial on what you need to do to take the image and make it available for printing, because there are some post-processing things you need to do. But if you go to finerworks.com, and that is a resource that's on our website, if you go there, they'll have some tips and tricks and things that you need to do that are absolutely essential before you get prints made.
Yeah. And Renee mentioned that Greg Staley is a great art photographer, and he's here in the DC area. That's awesome, Renee. Great tip. Thank you. We're getting towards the top of our hour. I just want to take this opportunity to thank everyone for coming today. And I also want to encourage you to apply to our social justice call for art, which you see on our slide here. It's open to all of Women's Caucus members nationwide. It's an online show that we're going to be hosting on our website. And as I mentioned, proceeds from the call fees are going to go towards a scholarship. So that'll be a really great call. And I think it's also going to be a pretty competitive call as well. Cool. All right.
Thank
you. Thanks, everybody. I think we're all set.
Good.
I want to thank you all for joining. If you have any questions after the workshop, you can feel free to email us at wcadc@wcadc.org. You can address your email just to Madison or to just whoever responds. I'm actually the one that usually responds to emails or forwards them on. But yeah, and feel free to check out our website if you're not familiar with our chapter, and look at our resources page. There's a lot of cool information there, and I think you'll like it. And look for this recording to be posted shortly.
Great.
Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.